Hey guys, I'm Elizabeth McCravey, a website designer and business coach for entrepreneurs and your host for the Breakthrough Brand podcast, the show that's all about pulling back the curtain on how to actually build a successful business. I don't skim the surface around here. If you want a deep dive into the nitty-gritty details of what it takes to run a successful business and stand out in a crowd, you're in the right place. After creating a multiple six-figure-a-year website design business in my 20s, I'm ready to share everything I've learned and everything I'm still learning because I believe the keys to building a thriving business should never be a secret. Here you'll find episodes that are actionable, direct, and fun, like friends chatting business over coffee, and a fresh, honest take on the reality of being an entrepreneur. If you're ready to master online marketing, branding, website design, mindset, and business strategy, then this is the podcast for you. It's time to build your breakthrough brand. Let's do this. Okay, so this is a podcast topic I covered as one of my early episodes all the way back in 2019 when I first started this podcast. And it was a really popular episode then. And it's actually still a top downloaded episode because people love to go back to the beginning of your podcast. Be sure to remember that if you're a fellow podcaster. And I even had an Instagram post back when it aired go viral because it both offended some people and then other people were like, oh my gosh, yes, finally, I totally agree with this. So anyway, I am here to talk about this topic again of stepping into the business owner role in our business, stepping into that CEO role and not treating our business like a hobby. And I have a fresh perspective on it with new tips and tricks because I've been at this business thing longer myself since 2019. And I've also helped more people through consulting and courses in this podcast to get their business going as well. So I feel like I have a lot of new perspectives on this topic. So if you're a new business owner or you're like so new that maybe you're still in that season where you prefer to call what you do a side hustle or a little freelance thing or a hobby, then this is for you. I have some strategies for you to step into a CEO role, even when that term feels silly to you now, because you do feel so new to this, which is okay that that term feels silly. That's absolutely okay. You do not have to feel like a super legit CEO to run your business like one. But to grow your business, you've got to act like a business owner, which means ditching some of the freelancer and hobbyist ways of working where we aren't taking things as seriously. So anyway, before I get to it, if you're new to this podcast, I want to share a quick intro to me. My name is Elizabeth McCravey, and I've had my business about 7.5 years officially and about 8.5 years. If you count my time spent freelancing and side hustling, you could really go 10 years if you want to count like freelancing in college, which I don't count. But yeah, I've been at it a while and I started out doing social media marketing and design work. And then I niched down to just like ditching the social media marketing to just different types of design. And then I niched further into branding and show website design. And my business grew to have its first six-figure year within a couple years. And then after that, I added my website templates because I didn't have the capacity anymore to keep up with the demands of one-on-one clients. I had more people trying to work with me than I had the capacity for. So I had to figure out, am I going agency model or am I going to go product model? And now since starting my template shop, I guess last year I hit over $1 million in template sales alone. I serve lots of customers worldwide. And a few years after starting my template shop, I created and launched a course called Booked Out Designer. That was in early 2021. And that's where I teach other designers how to build an in-demand business as a brand and website designer. So if you're a fellow designer and want to learn from me in that capacity, definitely check out Booked Out Designer. We've had about 160 or 170 maybe designers go through the course, which is amazing. And additionally, I'm a mom to a 2-year-old and almost 2-year-old at the time this will air. So yeah, that's me. That's a little bit about me if we haven't met yet. So let's get into the content though. So there's a quote that you may or may not have heard before, but I remember the first time I heard it that actually prompted me to like record this original episode. The quote says, treat your business like a business and it'll pay you like a business. Treat your business like a hobby and it will cost you like a hobby. And that quote was my motivation for coming up with this of like 5 ways to step out of the hobbyist role and into like being a CEO so that your business will pay you like a business versus costing you like a hobby does. And maybe you're even treating it like a hobby and it's not costing you. You're not in the negative, but you're not making as much money as you could. So I have 5 tips for you to step into that business owner CEO role so your business pays you, so that it's a viable business. And these tips are from my own experience and also my experience helping other business owners because, and this was part of my Instagram post that went viral. It said, you can't run your business like a freelancer and expect results like a CEO. You could also say you can't run your business like a hobbyist and expect results like a CEO. And I totally still agree with that statement all these years later. So my first strategy for you to step into that CEO role, and that is to start actually marketing your business and creating content. And now, if you're thinking, Elizabeth, that sounds so basic, I want to turn this off. I get the gist of probably what you're going to say. Don't turn me off yet. And this is actually way less basic than it might sound as I get into it. But with this first tip, what I want to say is as new business owners, it is so common to not have any marketing in place. You may not have a social media presence except for your personal Instagram account or your own TikTok. You may not be blogging. You may not even have a website to begin with. You're probably not doing email marketing and you're just getting clients from wherever they come. And often the place you're getting clients from is just from things like word of mouth or platforms like Upwork or in Facebook groups, which those are all great. And if you check out my freebie, my ASAP guide to booking clients, I talk about those as ways to find clients early on. If you want that guide, you can go to elizabethmccravy.com/ASAP. It's a free guide to help you book clients quickly early on in your business. But those things can't be the forever solution in your business for most people at least. And for me, that was me for longer than I typically want to admit. It took me over a year to start blogging in my business. It took me even longer than that to have a business Instagram account and Facebook page. And I also waited a really long time to start doing email marketing or having any real way to educate my potential clients and create value in the market. I just waited a long time and all that. And I think I would have seen some of those business numbers grow quicker had I done some of this stuff quicker. But I kind of just didn't know. You don't know what you don't know. When I think back and why did I not do an Instagram account for my business? I think I just didn't really think about it. I wasn't following people doing that. I wasn't super aware of it. I wasn't listening to podcasts like this one where people are talking about it. So we often wait on those things for a few reasons I see. One being we're so focused on getting clients that we can't focus on getting anything else. So we're focused on that, get the client, do the work, get the client, do the work. And it's kind of you're just in that cycle and that's all there is. Number 2, we often don't think we have anything to offer because we're still learning, which is just so not true. But that can be a mindset you're in as a new business owner, that creating educational content and blogging is for people who are farther along and not for you. Third thing that we often causes us not to create content interrupting this episode with a suggestion for the small business owners listening. Ever wonder what you should do for healthcare when you and your spouse are both self-employed so there's no work-provided health insurance to participate in? Well, when my husband Adam joined me in the entrepreneurial job space over 4 years ago, we joined Christian Healthcare Ministries instead of getting traditional health insurance. And it was the best decision for us, especially in these years of growing and raising a family while also running multiple businesses. CHM is a health cost-sharing ministry and is a faith-based alternative to health insurance. We did tons of research before choosing CHM, and if you know me and Adam, you know we are all about doing the math when making big or small financial decisions. And even though it's not insurance, CHM shares 100% of eligible medical bills, which is more than the typical 70 or 80% of medical bills paid for by insurance companies. All sharing is determined by the CHM guidelines, which you can check out before and after joining. And for the mamas and mamas to be listening, you truly cannot find a better healthcare option for maternity care. I had a vaginal delivery and a C-section and birth center care and hospital care between my 2 pregnancies and births, and it was all 100% shared for. And outside of birth, we've had our share of emergency room visits and procedures as a family, and those costs were all shared by members at Christian Healthcare Ministries, leaving us only paying our monthly contribution. CHM is less expensive month to month than insurance, and because there's no network, you can choose your care with whichever providers best fit your family. I seriously just cannot recommend Christian Healthcare Ministries enough. You've got to check them out. Go to elizabethmccravy.com/CHM for more information. Also putting that link in the show notes, elizabethmccravy.com/CHM. Now back to the episode. our priorities aren't long-term. So we're thinking about, again, just booking that next client versus like the longevity of your business and long-term goals, like, hitting solid SEO numbers and things like that. And then number 4, it makes business more complicated and more work. So it's easy enough. Like if things are trucking along fine and, you're booking clients and, you have a good workflow, you're able to raise your prices, it can kind of feel like, I don't know if I need that. So my tip to you right now, though, is to start creating content and having a marketing presence online. If you don't currently, or maybe you have a little bit of one, but you're not really putting much effort into it, get started. And if you want to know, okay, what's the simple way to start? I would say the simplest way to get going with this is to get a social media account for your business and start with just one and build that up. You do not have to be everywhere at once. And I would start with the account that is the place you're most drawn to. So if you're on TikTok right now for personal use and you love it and you feel like you know what works because you know it works on you, you know what makes you engage, you've seen other people create content that goes viral. Maybe you love making video. Maybe that's your place. Maybe instead, though, your audience is on Instagram or your audience is likely on Facebook. In that case, you build in those places. But I would just pick, honestly, one of those 3 would be probably the best place to start for most business owners, but pick one of those and start creating content that will help a potential client decide whether or not they want to work with you, and ultimately content that adds value to their life or business in some way. So you can do this through your Instagram feed posts, like making reels and carousel posts and static posts, and through creating Instagram story content where you're educating in that way. Start posting tips, start posting advice, be professional, but show your personality at the same time. It just takes a little bit to get comfortable, but you can, I promise, get comfortable showing up on things like Instagram stories, on making reels or TikTok videos with your face in it. And those things can eventually move you to more content creation through things like a blog, a podcast, a YouTube channel, and things like that, in addition to social media. For me, it was starting with social media and then going to blogging and then going to podcasting. And now I actually podcast and have a YouTube channel. So I kind of spread it all out over time. And I also followed this advice I'm giving you now of starting with one social media platform, which for me at the time was Instagram. And I even, for me, just recently got TikTok because TikTok wasn't something I naturally got on as much when it started. So anyway, just start with one thing and feel comfortable with that, even though I know there's logical advice out there of being everywhere and that being more reach. But I would argue that the barrier to entry of just starting with one place is more worth it than trying to be everywhere at once, all at once. So picking that one place is huge. And something I remember experiencing myself early on, I feel like I can still get back into that mindset. And I know so many other people experience this as well, though. You're posting, say it's on Instagram or it's on TikTok, whatever, and maybe you've just taken your personal Instagram and TikTok and now you're converting it to a place where you're going to talk about business as well. Maybe you're starting a new account, whatever way, but you are just so worried about the people you know in real life judging you for posting like you think you're some big deal, like you think you're an influencer, like you think you're a CEO, like you think your business is so cool. And you have all these stories you're telling yourself in your mind that that person from college, or even maybe it's one of your best friends. Maybe it's an ex-boyfriend or ex-girlfriend, and you're thinking that they're going to see your content and judge you. And that's who ultimately, when you're posting, you're in your mind, you're hey, I'm posting for my dream clients. But who you're really posting for is the fear of what those people from your real life are going to think. So I just want to encourage you to let go of those thoughts, because those are not the people paying the bills, and people care way less than you think about what you're doing. And if you do, which I believe you absolutely can and will, make it bigger in your business and ultimately become a success story. Those people are going to be the ones asking you for advice as they think about starting their own business and looking to you as someone who wow, her business is really cool. His business sounds awesome. And another little hack, if none of that sounds encouraging to you, there actually is a way to hide your content from people who follow you. If you just go, I want to say it's like muting them a little bit. Well, you can mute them. Actually, I'm saying that wrong. You can mute them, but then if you just go to your Instagram, I don't know about doing this on TikTok, But on your Instagram settings, if you go look at a recent story you've posted, click the ellipses in like the bottom right corner, I want to say, there's an option to hide your stories from specific people. And I think you could also hide profile content from specific people. So if there's just one person who you're like, Elizabeth, I hear you, that sounds great, but there's this one person who I know is going to make fun of me and I just cannot stop thinking about what they think about this content, hide your stuff from them. Like I did that personally, and I would recommend doing it again. So anyway, you gotta start somewhere. And when you're new, you often think you don't know enough to teach others. But I just want to say, I think you're wrong. And you obviously know something about whatever it is you're doing. So educate people on that. If you want some just quick ideas for like what you could create content around, ask yourself what questions your clients often have, whether that's on a discovery call before they book you or just questions that come up on projects. And then what are the topics you've enjoyed learning and mastering yourself that you feel like you kind of got down now, of like something you learned about business or you learned about whatever your niche is, that you can teach other people. So there's so much you can share. So anyway, that's a longer one, but that's the first one. Start to actually market your business and create content to really show up as that CEO and business owner role. Now, the second way to show up, stop treating your business like a hobby. Okay, if you've been around the block with me for a second, you've probably heard me talk about this before, but I'm going to talk about it again because there's always new people here and it's always worth hearing this again. Use a legitimate way to accept payments. So I shared this back in 2019 when I talked about this topic. It's still relevant today. I also did a solo episode at some point in this podcast where I was literally just talking about this. But in Facebook groups, I still, to this day, 2019 all the way to 2023, I often see this kind of question of like, does anyone have a recommendation to get around not paying fees for receiving money? They'll say, I know it's a cost of doing business. I know it's more convenient for clients, but I hate the fees and I want to not pay them. And often as new business owners, we will accept payments through Venmo or Cash App or PayPal.me, which is like a personal way to accept payments on PayPal, making people pay in cash or asking people to pay you via check in the mail or in person. I've seen it before where businesses won't let clients pay with credit cards to try to eliminate that fee. And basically all these different methods are ways to avoid what is often a 2.8 to 3%, sometimes even more than 3% processing fee in our business. So business owners do this to save some cash. When you allow people to pay you online through their own payment choice, these different payment platforms like Stripe and PayPal, they take a small percentage of the total of the transaction. Those fees happen with any normal payment. So when you buy something on Amazon, they're paying a processing fee. When you buy something from your favorite boutique, when you buy your groceries, they are paying a processing fee to process when you pay with a credit card, debit card, all of it. Even bank fees take a fee. It's just smaller. So like this is truly the cost of doing business, that as your business grows and all these larger businesses that you personally are buying from, they have worked this into their structure of their pricing. So here's the thing though, payment processing companies, this is what I like to remind people, they are businesses too, just like you are. And Stripe, PayPal, Square, they all have to make money. And most of those are not charging you to use their services. So the way they're making money is through like literally when you make money, they make some money too based off of those fees. So in order to operate, they have to make money. And instead of charging you that flat monthly fee for their service, they're just taking a small percentage of what you earn. So instead of like being upset and whining about those fees, what I want to encourage you to do is set your pricing to where you are not hurt by the fees and factor that in. So know like, hey, I'm using Stripe. This is what the percentage is. Things are really tight for me now as a new business owner. And I'm going to like make sure that I'm like raising my prices in such a way that it's like covering those fees. And I know it's the cost of doing business. So I can speak bluntly about this because I've been there. And when I was newer in my business, I went through a season. I really can't remember how long it was, but for a while with my clients, I only took payments on Venmo, Cash App, or checks in the mail. And it was like, I sent someone an invoice and it was like, how to pay me. At the top, it said Venmo, my Venmo and Cash App or my address. And it cost me more time doing that. And I also know, because I was creating every invoice like myself in Adobe Illustrator, which is a whole nother story. But also I was having to like manage all that myself because I wasn't using like a legitimate payment platform. So it cost me more time. It also is not good for keeping books because Venmo and Cash App especially are often hooked up to just your personal bank account. So you're kind of having to running things that way. And it wasn't great for my clients because I'm sure that during that time, I had clients who were buying, these big projects for me that would probably love to be able to have used their credit cards and get some like cashback rewards and all of that. Plus, something to remember too is when I was earning less in my business, I was really only saving $10 or less per transaction. Sometimes we're like $5. And so that's not worth the hassle on me or my customers, is the truth of it. And another reason to think about not using those apps is that you might get penalized for it. So for me, I actually got kicked off Cash App early on in my business and also got in trouble with Venmo because those two companies realized I was using their app for business and it was against the policy to use it for business. It's supposed to be just personal transactions. That's why they don't have fees. Because again, when it's a business expense, it's expected that you or the client should have to pay for processing. So I got in trouble for like basically avoiding that, pretending it was friend to friend. So don't get kicked off just to save a few dollars. And I would highly recommend, especially if you see your business something you're in for the long haul, to go ahead and start now with a professional payment system. It's also worth noting that now Venmo does have a Venmo for business option, which is a bit different than the Venmo personal. So I just want to note that that's a whole different thing that is okay and is more attached to your business. But again, it still has fees. Like Venmo for business has fees the same way all these other things do. So anyway, what is a payment processor? What payment processor should you use? Let's talk about that real quick. So first of all, I want to clarify that a payment platform and an invoicing company or a CRM, those are different things. So you could use something like Dubsado, for example, and on Dubsado, you can accept through different payment platforms like Stripe, Square, or PayPal. But Dubsado is the invoicing system you're using, and then the payment platform you'd be using might be Stripe or PayPal. So the invoicing systems, though, I'd recommend a few things. If you want something easy and free, so like they're not charging you a monthly fee to use it for invoicing, Wave is really great. So it's WAVVE. And that is an invoicing system. You can create and send invoices on the platform. You can send automated reminders and things like that. And the invoicing is free, but just like everything else, the payment processing is not, which remember, we are saying that we are going to be okay with that because we are being CEOs and not hobbyists in our business. So that's a great one for when you just get started. That's actually what I used before I switched to Dubsado. So for something more robust, though, I recommend Dubsado. I will put a link to more info on Dubsado in the show notes for this episode. It is so much more than invoicing. Once you discover it, if you've never experienced anything like it, it is life-changing because it will save you hours and hours and hours in your business. And ultimately, especially early on, it really brings up what your hourly rate is because you're not spending all your time creating invoices and individual questionnaires and contracts, etc. So it does things like contracts, questionnaires for your clients. You can do emailing and kind of managing leads, calendar management for people to schedule meetings with you, invoicing, like I already said, and so much more. So with Dubsado, you can use the code Elizabeth30 and get 30% off your first month or year. And again, I'll link to that in the show notes. And something else cool, I know Dubsado right now is working on having a new option that would be called Dubsado Pay so that you can do their direct payment system instead of something like Stripe and PayPal. And they're trying to work that to where it is a much lower fee than what Stripe and PayPal are currently offering. So I believe that soon, once they get this all figured out, they are going to have the lowest processing fee in the industry. So that's another reason to go ahead and consider switching to Dubsado. So anyway, if you are also thinking as you hear all that, and we're about to finish this one up, but you hear me, but you're I really need to avoid payment processing fees. I just want to encourage you to do the math. Sit down with your iPhone calculator and a sheet of paper and factor in the fees to the cost. So for example, for me and my business right now, when I look at my template shop and the cost of each template, you guys see one number that you might be paying when you purchase a website template, but I'm seeing another number. I'm not taking home that total amount because of those fees, which is okay. I have factored that in to the cost of running business, to my goals, and into ultimately the pricing of my templates. So you'll set up your business to succeed more in the long run if you start being more professional with your payments and invoicing now. And I know early on, avoiding that $5 to $15 fee that comes through processing fees can feel huge. Like you don't want to pay the $10. I have been there and it's like every penny counts. But trust me, once you start accepting the fees for what they are and work them into your cost of doing business, you will feel better. You'll probably get that money back just through the time saved through using like legitimate invoicing systems. And your clients are going to appreciate it. It's going to be showing up in a more professional way than you saying like, send me a payment on Cash App. And the last thing I want you to remember about this is that you can write off these fees on your taxes. They are tax deductible. I write mine off as miscellaneous and they're categorized as credit card processing fees. And it's a pretty large amount every year that again is all tax deductible. So this reduced the amount of taxes you have to pay, which is also great. So as you think about being the cost of doing business, just know that as well. If you're a brand or website designer and you're new in your business and looking to find your first or your next paying design client ASAP, like you needed this yesterday, then you need to check out my guide to finding your next client fast. Go to elizabethmccravey.com/ASAP to get my ASAP client booking guide. In this guide, I teach strategies as a designer to how to find paying clients, 8 specific ones that are really helpful, whether it's your first client or your 50th client that you're trying to book. You'll learn 8 key strategies for finding clients as a designer, great places to look for clients that you might not be thinking of, creative ways to get clients that you might not be thinking about, and then practical tips for implementing these strategies. So go get the guide, elizabethmccravey.com/ASAP. I'll link that in the show notes too. Now, back to the episode. Okay, third way to stop treating your business like a hobby and step into that CEO role. This one also relates to finances because finances are such a way that we often are staying in that like hobbyist mentality. So this third one, separate your personal and business finances. So this is the last financial one I'm going to talk about, but this is so vital. And again, a thing I learned from not doing well early on. And I was so glad when I switched to managing my finances like a CEO and not a freelancer. I'm glad I made this shift when I did, because I shifted early enough that it wasn't like a total headache. But oftentimes as a new business owner, your business finances and your personal finances are one unit. It's all just that same account. You're running your business in and out of your personal bank account or your personal credit card. And this might seem like it makes sense when you're not earning much or spending much in your business, but hopefully that will all change quickly. And when it does, having like your weekly grocery bill or buying your kids' diapers mixed in with your, Dubsado subscription or buying a website template is going to feel very confusing and overwhelming. So changing it early is good. An embarrassing story for me, but I'm sharing because I know this will be relatable to you. But when I first started my business, we kept everything flowing in and out of our personal checking account with my personal bank. It was all one unit. And for what I do in my business, which is a great thing about online service-based businesses, but the startup cost for me of starting my business was extremely low. So it felt like keeping it all in my personal account was fine. I was good at being budgety with my spending. I didn't subscribe to things I didn't need. I kept expenses to a minimum. But hilariously now, and I looked at it before recording this, but we had a budget that I managed in like Google spreadsheet. And I had an actual tab in our budgeting spreadsheet where all my business expenses lived. And we tracked them like we would track our rent payments or eating out. It was just all one thing. And it was like a category on our personal finances budget, basically. And that might not seem weird to some of you, but for me, like thinking about doing that now with my business would be absolutely crazy because I have things like payroll. I pay for a whole lot more softwares, and it would just be quite overwhelming, very complicated. So I did that way though for probably close to a year before I opened up, again, still at the same bank, but I opened up a business account, and it was so good when I did this. And it made me wonder, like, why didn't I do this sooner? Because it honestly didn't take that long, and it just made me feel more like the separation was good, basically. Just more separation felt good. So this is what I would recommend you do if you are doing both of yours together. See if you can open a business account through whatever bank you're using for your personal finances. That's a great, easy way to go. Or alternatively, if you're like, I already know about a bank that like you're super interested in using for your business, go with that. But opening one at the bank you're already at is really helpful and simple. And they definitely have business account options. And something else I want you to do when you go to open it, talk to your bank about no fee business banking accounts. They should have that as an option. if you don't ask about it, it's very likely that your bank is going to try to set you up with an account that's like a $5 to $10 just monthly fee to have the account exist. But I promise you, there are ways to work that out by just like literally talking to them about it, at least with most banks. And that's been my experience. So try to work that out, because you should be able to have an account that is free to have as long as you're keeping a certain balance in it. I want to say for me, the balance was like I had to keep $300 in it. And then it was no fees, which is obviously totally worth it. And it's nice to have like that floating money in there anyway. And I did 2 podcast episodes recently all about business finances and how I do my own business finances at this stage in my business. And I use a system called Profit First, which is based on a book. And I wish I would have started doing this sooner. Like, I wish right now that I was able to tell you that like 8 years ago, when I was all, realizing I should have had it in separate accounts, I read this book, Profit First, and I changed everything. Like, I wish I could tell you that, but that was more of a recent thing I did. And I would have totally, if I could do it over, I would have done this sooner. So if you're new to business and you're like right now, you're going to separate your personal and business finances for the first time, try the Profit First method. Honestly, you don't even need to read the book to figure it out. Just go back to episode 219 and 220 of this podcast. I divided it up into like 2 episodes, and just listen to me talk about how to do it, and you'll be able to figure it out. There's also a freebie that goes along with episode 220 that you can get at elizabethmccravey.com/profit. And in that, I walk through like how to do that whole system. So anyway, would highly recommend that. And then another thing I would recommend too doing as you think about up-leveling your business finances, keep your expenses on a business credit card that offers great rewards that are relevant to your business, and then always pay it off every month. This will help cash flow in your business checking account, especially early on when you might not be leaving much money in your business account. It really helps with cash flow, and then you're literally getting money back. So the card I use is the Capital One Spark business card. It's a cashback card. It has literally such a great cashback system. I have one for our real estate business and also for my personal business. I have one other business credit card, but in reality, this is the main one I use for like literally everything. And I should look right now, but I have like tons of cash back. So you can go to elizabethmccravey.com/capital1, and that's capital ONE. So writing out the word one, all one word, and it'll redirect you to this Spark card. So you can get it. It's the Spark 2% Cash Plus is the one I have. But anyway, I just logged into my bank account my credit card account, and I have almost $700 of cash back right now. And I cash it out somewhat often. Okay. And use it on things. I use it on Amazon purchases. I sometimes just literally cash it out. You can do a purchase eraser thing where you buy something and then you're literally erasing the cost of it. Anyway, it's really cool. Absolutely worth getting. And the only caveat I would have to this is if you are someone who at different points in your life have struggled with going into credit card debt and spending more like seeing your available credit and like going for that number, then maybe stick to just using a traditional debit card and only spending based on what you have. But if you are someone who you're like, I know I can pay it off every month, I'm not going to spend more than I have available, then using a credit card is a great way to like just basically get extra money. So I'm a very pro credit card person. And we also do a similar thing in our personal life where we use credit cards and get great rewards. We actually tend to, all of our vacations basically are funded through credit card rewards, which is really cool. So anyway, little extra tip there. Now let's get into way number 4. So I've got 2 left here now, and this one I have not as much to say about some of the others, but this is very, very important one. So have a legitimate website presence. And since I'm a website designer, you can probably expect me to say this. It almost feels like I can't do an episode about early on business things without saying this, but it is so true. If you are only operating your business from Instagram, Upwork, or word of mouth, that is fun and great, and you can probably build something really successful that way, but it's not taking your business to that super serious business mindset. I believe that you need a legit website presence, no matter how great it's going, finding clients on other platforms, because those platforms can change their algorithm. They can change their rules. They can change their fees, whatever it is at any point. And all of a sudden you might not be getting clients on Upwork anymore, or you might not be able to find clients in that Facebook group or in that online community you pay to be a part of, or whatever it is. So having a website also shows shows that you're a legitimate business, not a hobbyist. It's just a way, like when a potential client looks to work with you, that you make things feel really legitimate. So, and I know it's a scare tactic that I really get tired of people using, but you really can lose your social media and get completely locked out of it, which is a reason to have something besides just social media if that's kind of where you're building things. Actually, my friend and copywriter, Emily, just lost access to her Instagram account like a month or two ago. And it really stinks what happened to her. So Instagram told her that she violated the terms of Instagram, which she did not. And then after talking to someone at Instagram support, they realized, hey, actually, you didn't violate anything. That was a mistake. Sorry. They still told her they can't give her account back. And she, of course, actually does have an active website presence using one of my templates, by the way. And she's a really great email list she's built that she really actively emails. So that's helpful, but it's still crushing, but still helpful. And it would be way more crushing if that was the only thing you had in your business. Cause what do I do now? How do I get these people to come find me again and follow me again? So another thing I want to say about websites is just having a website isn't always a win. If your website is ugly, if it doesn't function properly, if people, can't navigate, or if it's just a major turnoff to your ideal client, that can sometimes be more hurtful to your business than not having one at all, which is why website stuff is kind of tricky. So it goes both ways. You need a website, you need it to be good. And maybe you've have a few different thoughts I've heard people have about not having a website. So maybe you've thought to yourself, I don't know how to improve my website and make it better than it is. I feel limited when editing it. So maybe you do have a website and you're just I know it's not great, but I don't really know what to do about it. If this is you, then you need a platform you can use with ease. And what I would highly recommend is Showit. If you've never heard of Showit, it is a website builder, similar to something like Wix or Squarespace. And it's what I use. It's what my clients and customers use. And it's what my templates are built on. And it's excellent for most small business types. With Showit, you either need a designer to custom design the website for you, or you need a template that you can customize yourself. And as a new business owner, I usually would not recommend to people a custom designed website because your budget's likely tighter and your business will likely change a ton in the first couple of years. You might get a new name, you might get a new brand, you might have new services, you might completely change what you're doing and who you're serving. So getting a custom site done every time is going to get expensive, every time you have these big shifts. So if you're a new business owner, I'd highly recommend getting a website template, a Showit website template. And getting a great template is usually going to feel like an investment. It's not going to be cheap. But with most Showit templates, you can do a payment plan. I offer 4 months of payments, or 2 months, or pay in full on my templates. So there's a lot of different options to work within your budget. And also worth noting, with that cash back card I was talking about earlier, on the Spark 1.5 Cash Select card, which actually has no annual fee, but you have to have excellent credit to get it. It says that you earn a $650 cash bonus when you spend $6,000 in the first 3 months on your card, which is really awesome. Immediately getting $650 back. So something when you think about having a big expense in your business, something like buying a website template, or maybe, you're going to subscribe to Showit and you want to pay for the year in full, you could sign up for this card and try to put all your expenses on it and then get $650 back. That's actually what I did when I signed up for my own Capital One Tour card all those years ago. I got a really good, they had a different deal at the time. I think it was still $650. So it might have been slightly less than that even, but I worked on getting to the total amount of spending and then got my cash reward, which was really awesome. So anyway, that's a way to make the cost of a template feel a little better that I literally just thought of as I'm reading my outline. But yeah, if you're new, I'd recommend a template, and going for a good template, I'd highly recommend my own template shop. Obviously, they're Showit templates. They're easy to use. I'm constantly coming out with new ones, and they're very well thought out, content wise, where you can really just plug and play to make your website. They're great for all different industries. You can find those at elizabethmccravey.com/shop. And if you use the code BB podcast, short for Breakthrough Brand, you'll get 10% off as well. So that is worth looking at. So another thought you might have, if you're just like, you don't have a website at all, you might think I can't afford it right now. And that, I would say you might be absolutely right. I'm not going to tell you that's something you can just afford. And that would be something to, I would say, make a priority to save for getting a website template. Are there things you can cut back on? Could you invest money from your personal life into your business? That's something else I did early on that was helpful, because a good website is worth the investment, but it is something that you might work up to. And that is a reason why, when we launch our websites, it feels so huge, because it is an investment of time and money, and we're legitimizing ourselves as a business owner, and it's really exciting. You might also be thinking, my website isn't that bad, but I know it's not great. And that's a pretty common thought. And maybe if it isn't that bad, then other things can take priority right now. I would say that, like, we've got to think about when it comes to business spending, when it comes to our time and energy and what we're pouring into in our businesses, we have limited time. We have limited time, limited resources. So there needs to be a priority list. So maybe something else in your business is a bigger priority to spend on and spend your time on than a website, because your website isn't that bad. So maybe the website's lower on the list, and then as other things get marked off, you move towards the website. But I would say too, don't settle for a website long-term at least that you don't love. And also, if you don't think it's great, your ideal client likely also doesn't think it's great, which is really tough, but that's the truth of it. And you're not going to show up as confidently in your business sending people to your website if you don't think it's very good. So when you have that confidence of like, my website's awesome, it sells myself, it sells my products without me even having to lift a finger. If you have more of that mentality, you're going to want to be sending people there as much as possible. But if you think it's not very good, you're not going to show up like you think it's good. So anyway, that is number 4. Get a legit website. And again, if you're looking for website templates, go check mine out. If you've been enjoying this podcast, you'll probably like those. So the final one, I saved like probably the biggest one you could say for last. And this is one that again, I can think back to my new business owner self, and this was so huge for me, and I believe it can be huge for you as well. And it's a simple tip of start calling yourself a business owner. So our work and our business, what we do for a living, what we're pouring our time and energy to, it is such an emotional thing. So when we first decide to go out into the wild entrepreneurial world, it feels very vulnerable and scary, because you are betting on yourself in a way that you're not when you accepted that 9-to-5 job. Not that those aren't hard and interesting and to have plenty of challenges and plenty of going all in. I'm not saying that, but being like, hello, I'm going to start a business and go out on my own and try to provide for myself is very vulnerable and scary. And the weird thing is it often feels that way most around the people we already know more than it does around strangers, which goes back to, in the earlier point when I was saying, if you're afraid to show up sharing content because afraid of what people in your life think. But that goes as well with calling yourself a business owner. So you might struggle feeling confident telling your friend from college that you quit your job and you started a photography business. But it might feel natural saying that to the World Wide Web. And that is just again, an interesting thing about the vulnerability really of something like starting a business. So I think a huge step though in really owning our role as a business owning person is to be able to call ourselves a business owner with confidence. And I really want you for yourself to be able to own your role as a business owner, not just as a freelancer and not just as I do this little thing on the side, or I have this hobby, or when my kid's napping, I do this thing sometimes. No, being able to say hey, this is something I own. This is something I do. And don't beat yourself up over this. If you're hearing me say all that and you're like, Elizabeth, that's great, but I do not have the confidence for that. It totally takes time. And for me, for way too long, I stumbled over my words when people would ask what I do. And my husband, Adam, and I used to always laugh about this. I feel like he still could laugh about this sometimes hearing me try to explain it, but we'd leave a party or hanging out with new people. And he would tell me in a playful way, you're so bad at telling people what you do. And to him, it was pretty simple to explain to someone what I did. But to me, I did not feel good to own up to any of the things he saw as the answer to what I do. So when people would say hey, Elizabeth, what do you do for work? I would say something like, well, recently, I started freelancing on the side. I do social media management. I also do some graphic design, and I do branding too, like branding your own logos. It's pretty complicated. Like that would kind of be my answer. And usually when I answered, I was the opposite of confident, and I would literally avoid the word business owner or saying like, I own a business. And I think that confused people because it was like I was saying I did all these things and they're like, wait, like, do you work at like a company or like, are you doing that on your own? It's like that would often be the follow-up question. And I also had this like weird emotional state of like really wanting people to ask what I did and be curious about my work because I was so excited about it, right? But I was also really nervous that anyone asked any questions, any follow-up questions. I'm like, oh my God, I don't know how to answer this. Now, though, I don't really care that much if random people know what I do. But when they do ask, I answer more confidently. And I typically will say something right now. If you want like an example, I'll say I own a web design company. That's usually how I started out. And then I'll also say like I host a podcast and I also have an online course for designers. And sometimes I'll say something like I create and design website templates. Like, so those are kind of words I use if you're looking for some inspiration. But I would encourage you to practice saying this. So this is going to sound so cheesy. You don't have to tell anyone you did it. You don't even have to tell me that you do it. But I would encourage you to stand in front of a mirror today, maybe as soon as this episode turns off. We're almost at the end here. So do this today, right now, even if it makes sense for you, and just stand in front of the mirror, take a moment and say what you do. So if you're in the kitchen washing dishes, you're at the gym, you're in the car, you're on a walk, wherever you are, you could also do that right now without the mirror and just say out loud what you do. So it could be, I own a wedding photography business, or I am a wedding photographer. I own a web design company. I'm a copywriter. I own a copywriting business. I run a marketing agency. I'm a florist and I own my own business. Whatever your answer is, learn to say it. And this is for your own benefit. It's not even for the benefit of the person you're going to tell this to, next weekend at your kid's birthday party. Like, it's not about that. It's for your benefit, not the person you're talking to. Because when you see yourself as a business owner, you will treat your business like a business and not a hobby. Bringing it back to the whole title of this episode, that's why this matters. It's for you. And I really do believe that for myself, when I started being able to say to people, I own a web design company, or I'm a website designer and I work for myself, like using those kinds of terms, I was showing up with that energy in all the other aspects of my business too. I was showing up with that energy in my marketing, on discovery calls with clients, in my business finances, and being able to budget as a business owner, and being able to like market myself well, and starting this podcast eventually. Like that confidence in calling myself a business owner is what gave me the confidence to decide I could teach other people. So anyway, that's my final one. And I want to now real quick go through and just recap these 5 ways. So the first one we talked about was start to actually market your business and create content for your business to educate potential clients. Number 2, use a legitimate way to accept payments. And remember, I highly recommend Dubsado. That code's Elizabeth30 for 30% off. And then let's see, number 3, separate your personal and business finances. Remember, you can go back to episode 219 and 220 to hear about how I wish I had done my business finances early on and how I do them now. Number 4, have a legitimate website presence. And then number 5, start calling yourself a business owner, even if you don't feel like it. So that is it, friends. I hope you enjoyed this episode, and it was so fun for me, like basically revisiting my old outline from that really early episode. So I hope you enjoyed this too. And if you're new to this podcast and new to owning your business, I just want to say welcome to the Breakthrough Brand Podcast and our community. You can go to elizabethmccravey.com/Facebook and join the free Facebook group with other listeners to this podcast, where you can ask questions and meet new people, maybe find some clients and really network and make friends. So that's an awesome group you can be a part of. And also, I want to encourage you to go back through all the episodes before this one and just download the ones that sound like they would help you in your business, that sound like there's going to be something to offer you. For me, podcasting, like listening to other people's shows, like being a podcast listener, was one of the biggest ways I grew my business early on. So soak up the free content, enjoy the learning, and go download some old episodes. That's it. I'll be back next week, actually, with a very special, super exciting solo episode that I can't wait to share with you. So be sure to subscribe and come back for that one. And I will talk to you then. Bye, guys. Hey, thanks for listening to the podcast today and for staying until the end. I appreciate you being here. And if you enjoyed this episode, then I want to invite you to check out my online course and coaching program for designers, Booked Out Designer. In this program, I teach you how to build a successful, in-demand, booked out business as a designer. You'll learn everything from the exact experience I take my clients through to things like figuring out your niche, mastering discovery calls, pricing your services for profit, creating contracts that will not cause you legal troubles, and my exact social media strategies to book clients. You even get to watch recordings of me in actual meetings with my actual clients so you can really learn through what you're seeing. We take things you're learning on this podcast and so many topics I never even cover on this show and deep dive into them. So in addition to the amazing course, the course is 9 modules of teaching with over 90 lessons. You get group coaching calls with me and access to an exclusive Facebook community of designers just like you. And fun fact, this isn't one of those kind of Facebook groups where the founder never comments on posts or you never see them in there. You'll find me there all the time, ready to help you out with any business question you have. So to get info on the course and to see when the doors will be opening again, head to elizabethmccravey.com/BOD, short for Booked Out Designer. I hope to be able to coach you and teach you inside of the course soon. And don't forget that you can subscribe to this podcast on Apple Podcasts or wherever you're listening so that you never miss an episode. And a great way to support the show is to leave a rating and review, share it with a friend, share it on social media. All of that will help get the word out. All right, I'll see you again next week.